Okay, good afternoon. It is now 2:15, and we are opening the quarterly commissioners meeting for the New York City Commission on Human Rights. It is Thursday, March 7th. My name is Carmelyn P. Malalis. I am the Chair and Commissioner for the New York City Commission on Human Rights. I'm going to ask that I just go across the table to the commissioners that are present today, please.
Kerry Davis, Commissioner.
Regina Estella.
Jonathan Greenspun.
And Kathy Albies.
Great. So I will note that we are, of course, under quorum today, but gratefully we do not have any items on our agenda to vote on. So I'm going to use today mostly as an update of things that have been happening recently. There's been a lot of activity at the agency, as well as time to continue in some form the discussion that we had at the last commissioners convening on racial justice at the commission and some of our initiatives in that area. So with that, I'm going to ask that our general counsel come forward, introduce himself, and then also just provide some reminders to the commissioners since it's annual disclosure time.
Yes, we're going to get the most exciting part of this meeting done first, I guess. I'm Jamie Siddall, general counsel for the commission. I'm just going to give a brief reminder that by now, I hope the commissioners have received a communication from COIB by email that has a 2-page instruction on how to fill out your annual disclosure, and then has a PDF that is fillable. And it has to be filled out in the PDF fillable form and emailed back to COIB. And the deadline to complete this by is May 4th. If there are any questions about this, please let me know. I know one question's already been raised about on the first page when you put in your identifying information. It asks for entity email and entity phone. I think they might be asking if you have a CCHR email and phone number. I'm going to verify whether that's the case and confirm with you whether or not you need to put anything there, or whether you just need a blank, or whether you're supposed to put my contact information. But I will circulate another reminder email about that. If you have other questions, I'm available by email, phone. I think everyone's got my contact information by now, and I'm happy to answer questions or to allow them to get to one meeting or something.
Are you reviewing the, I already sent mine in, so if I made a mistake, tell me and I'll fix it.
I will not review it. So unless COIB contacts me or contacts you, everything's fine. And I think you're rolling.
I did say that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I started.
No worries. And I'm just going to ask Gurdev, since you just joined us, if you can, just for the record, state your name and that you are here for our April 12th meeting.
Yes, my name is Gurdev Singh Kang. I'm here today for the meeting.
Fantastic.
To attend the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we go to some of the department-specific updates, I want to note that all the commissioners have before them as well our 2017 year-end review. As we've been doing it in prior years, this year-end review is our annual report for the calendar year 2017. And that is because by statute, the Commission on Human Rights had to provide a calendar year annual report every March. Because of a legislative change that took place last year, our reporting cycle will be changing. So we were not required to actually provide an annual report for this year, but we wanted to provide transparency to the public and also to provide information on what we've been doing in calendar year 2017. But as of next year, we will actually be transitioning to the same cycle as the mayor's MMR. So we will be reporting more on the fiscal year rather than on the calendar year. But please take home with you this year-end review. We can send it to you electronically as well. I think it's already gone out electronically with the newsletter and some of the other commission materials that you receive. And of course, if folks have any questions or have any comments, please feel free to contact me or any of the commission staff. Okay. On that, can I ask our Deputy Commissioner for Law Enforcement, Hollis Fitch, to give us some updates on what's been going on in LEB?
Yes.
Great.
I'm going to highlight 2 things. I'll talk about 2 commission-initiated investigations that you probably may have already seen information on, but I'll talk about them a little bit. And then I want to give a quick update on our improvements in source of income and early intervention on the front end of our complaint process. So we announced the results of two commission-initiated investigations since we last met. One is a settlement with Lenox Hill Radiology. We got a letter, it's related to access for women, disabled women to get mammograms. We got a letter and information from the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest sometime in, I think, towards the beginning of 2017, and indicating that Lenox Hill Radiology, in particular, what we learned, many facilities don't have the necessary access and equipment to allow women with disabilities to get mammograms. We sent testers, we did some site visits, we looked at a number of institutions. Lenox Hill immediately conciliated with us, and so we were able to announce a really good resolution with them, which involved improvements in there, everything from frontline policies, staff interactions, to a ramp into the building, and to the access to the equipment to allow the actual mammograms to take place. And this is also following up significantly on Regina's work. We were able to benefit from that. We now have a number of other institutions to work with because this is a pervasive problem across the city. The other one that I wanted to
Can I
mention-
pause you for a minute? And I was just saying, given Commissioner Estela's work in this area, if she wanted to comment on it at all.
Oh, just to say how important this work is to women with physical disabilities. I was saying earlier to Commissioner Davis that women with disabilities don't have a higher incidence of breast cancer, but they have a higher mortality rate because of the access issues. So it's an important
This was a particularly, the woman who came to us was not interested in coming forward and filing her own complaint. But she did share a lot of information with us, which made it possible for us to do a really specific intervention with Lenox Hill, and then also we took that and reviewed with other institutions.
And the importance of at every step of that access is not just getting to the mammogram, but having everybody along that line understand what your needs are.
Well, that's one of the things that we found in doing the testing was that even some facilities that do have the equipment or do have some of the accessibility issues resolved, their frontline staff weren't able to really identify or assure people that they would have access. So for some people, it's an implementation problem as well, and so we're in the process of developing policies for those institutions to make sure that from the very beginning to the end of the process, people are treated the same. So then the other settlement that we wanted to announce is one with the Sunnyside Queens Condo Board, which people may have seen in the news as well. Sometime last year, there was some media reports, and also certain council members came to us to let us know about a condo building in Sunnyside, Queens that had a bunch of Nazi and Confederate symbols along with a whole host of other images in the lobby. And then tenants and owners in the building were reporting that the manager of the building, or this individual who had been given the task of being the manager of the building, whether he actually had that title or not, was harassing tenants and owners based on a range of protected categories. So CRB did an immediate reach out to the neighborhood and gave some visibility to the area, started talking to the tenants and owners, sending information, and putting us in LEB in contact with the people in the building and people around the building. Councilman Ben Bramer, his office had also been in touch with people in the building, and they sent us information they had collected and put us in touch with tenants and owners. And we were able to negotiate a settlement that involved the complete change in board. Everyone who was on the board, including this particularly problematic person, were removed from the board. He was actually arrested for other things around the same time. And
I know it very
then
well.
the commission, our staff oversaw a new board election and new board rules. There were some, in addition to the allegations of harassment and the offensive imagery, there were per se violations of the human rights law in their condo board rules, which verify immigration status as a condition of a lease and a number of different things. So it was basically a building-wide cleanup to some degree, and we're continuing to be involved. It's not a completely done situation, but we have reached a settlement with the board. It's a new board. They're dealing with the imagery, they're cleaning up the rules and continuing to monitor it. But we were proud of the kind of swift response and agency-wide intervention in both the board itself, but also the visibility.
Yeah, I just want to note, I think this was a great model of how within the agency there was great collaboration between community relations as well as law enforcement. And as a result, this case actually resolved within a matter of months with, if you consider how long sometimes litigations take, I think this was, again, a great model of what we're able to do internally because we have both a community relations component as well as law enforcement.
So then on the more administrative end, we were able to develop a source of income unit and what was originally called an intake unit, which we staffed up throughout the fall and sort of launched in January in their full current iteration. And we changed that, we rebranded our intake unit as an early intervention unit. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what some of our staff are working on. We're trying to really increase our ability as an agency to respond swiftly in the law enforcement process and detour things away from full investigation, which can be a long road, to early resolution when it seems appropriate. So that is a really big range. In the source of income context, the source of income unit is really escalating complaints where it looks like if we leverage our enforcement, we might be able to get an apartment for the person who has been denied the apartment because they have public assistance, they're paying for public assistance. And then the early intervention team is focusing on both very strong cases and providing that's doing fast intake when it seems to be an ongoing harassment or retaliation situation, and then also taking things that seem like they should just resolve in a conversation, perhaps it's a training issue, the small public accommodation doesn't know its obligations and needs to be told that they must take a service animal, for example, and try to resolve a situation that is still a violation of the law, but is a smaller situation that shouldn't have to go through the whole investigation process. As a result of the work of those teams, the intake wait time for our sort of cases that are going through the traditional method of intake and complaint filing and investigation has now dropped a month. So we used to be scheduling things more than 3 months out. We are now short of 2 months. So we're very proud of that impact as well as just the ability to respond more quickly and in different ways depending on what the situation calls for.
Any questions for Hollis regarding law enforcement related? Nope. Great. Marissa, can you provide an update for Community Relations Bureau?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So on the community relations front, it's been very busy and I think productive several months. I will start with some things that are happening this week and then go a little bit back and then a little bit forward as well. So Saturday is the holiday called Vaisakhi, and so this evening, just a couple of hours, we will be co-hosting with the mayor's office a Vaisakhi celebration at the David Dinkins Municipal Building. It is, I think to our knowledge, one of the first, if ever, celebrations that a mayoral administration has done of this celebration. And so it's a really great time for us to sort of center and highlight the Sikh community in New York City and their contributions to our city. So we're looking forward to that. Just a couple days ago, on Monday, we had our annual Interfaith Seder. This year, the focus was on immigrant justice, and it was remarkably successful, incredibly diverse, hosted in Jackson Heights. And so this is April, so it's also Fair Housing Month. It's also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Because of that, we're doing, and there's also Immigrant Heritage Week happening this month. So we actually have events, convenings every 3 days this month, essentially. We've been very busy. So we've talked about this week. So next week we'll start our fair housing programming. There will be on the 18th a training for folks on source of income. Actually, we're doing a lot with LEB in terms of source of income outreach for the staffers of all of the elected officials in the Bronx on the 18th in the morning, and then the afternoon will be a public resource fair and a mobile outreach clinic at the Metropolitan College of New York will now be open to the public. That's on the 18th. The 20th, we're having a citywide day of action, Immigrant Heritage Week, also a co-sponsorship with the mayor's office. And then the 26th, we are commemorating Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the Bronx with the Denim Day convening. The details of that are still sort of crystallizing. And then on Staten Island, the same day, we're having a fair housing symposium, also with a focus on source of income, and that is a co-sponsorship with a number of community-based partnerships and also the district attorney's task force. So a very busy month. We also came off of a very busy and full Women's History Month. Just a few days ago that ended. We launched a curriculum that we have been developing for the last year and a half called Empowering Young Women with the Brooklyn YWCA. And we also hosted a forum for women in non-traditional employment, which was a new undertaking for us. We also think quite successful. That was hosted at DC 37's headquarters, which meant a lot for us because a lot of our staff are DC 37 members, so that was quite fantastic. It was attended by the public advocate, along with many other fantastic people. And then we also did a number of other partnerships or co-sponsorships with community groups and local elected officials for Women's History Month in support of their own outreach to their communities. And then going even further back, we celebrated Black History Month. We started a little bit after Martin Luther King Day. We had an African community, a roundtable for African Muslims here at the commission. We hosted over 15 community leaders of various ages and throughout the boroughs of the city of New York here at the commission to talk about their experiences as African Muslims and their needs and what they would like to work with the commission on for their communities. That was on January 25th, I believe. And then we also had this was in the aftermath of the infamous comments that the president made about African countries. So we decided to do a little bit of cultural resistance, and we celebrated the African human rights thought. And so we did a convening with some African philosophers just to really talk about the role that human rights has always played in African civilization and society, pre and post-colonialism. So that was a lot of fun, and it was another chance to convene the community. We did it in the style of the Harlem Renaissance Scent Salon, so we had it at Columbia, so that was fantastic. And then we also had what is now the second forum on gentrification, but instead of having it in Bed-Stuy, as we did in June of 2017, we had it in Harlem as well. But focus on gentrification, but from another vantage point, because gentrification is sort of past tense, or it is, Harlem has been gentrified, so we really focus on sort of the impacts of where you go from here, as opposed to the situation in Bed-Stuy, where it's a little bit more fluid. And so that has been the last few months. We are now also looking forward to the third annual Iftar in the city, which will also be held in Jackson Heights, Queens on May 31st, and our LGBT Iftar, which will be held on June 7th. And we are also putting together events for May for Asian American Heritage Month. So details will come from there. So a lot of work that we're doing. We're beefing up our youth and education programming, and it's been a lot of fun to serve the city in this way. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Marisa. Any questions?
No, I really appreciate what their work, the community affairs unit work, this Vaisakhi celebration. This is very great for the most pride for the Sikh community, because now the Sikh community also part of the New York City, and I'm very thankful for the community affairs. They're doing a lot of work, great work. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited. It's tonight.
I have a
We're going to get our
celebration today.
Vaisakhi on.
Yes.
Yes.
And one more thing I want to add it, the April month of April for the Sikh awareness, because April 13, 1699, the Sikh religion formed, created by our Guru. So this way, like we see yesterday, there was in Pennsylvania Assembly, they also passed the Sikh awareness. And New Jersey, they were last week before the Senate and the Assembly, they passed the Sikh Awareness Month of April for the Sikh. And that's why we are requested in New York City too, they have acknowledge the Sikh Awareness the month of April.
Okay. Let's move on to a report from the Office of the Chair. Brittany, do you want to start with our artists in residence?
Sure, yeah. So I'm very excited to let you all know, though it's been reported, but that we have an artist in residence who's working with us through a program that's run out of the Department of Cultural Affairs. Her name is Tatiana Bazalizadeh, and she is a noted artist who is focused really on issues of street harassment and kind of racial justice through different projects. But she's perhaps best known for a set of pieces called "Stop Telling Women to Smile" that you may have seen that address the issue of street harassment. She's also the consulting artist on Spike Lee's She's Got Habit, the Netflix TV series. So she has been working with us. She's visited our offices a few times. She did an artist talk for our staff, and we're just about ending kind of the research phase of her project. Pretty soon we'll be drilling down on the specifics of what she's going to do in partnership with the commission. So we're just very excited to have her, and certainly open to ideas that you guys might have about what we should be doing in partnership.
Yeah, we're really excited. She's also hoping to incorporate in her project with us a youth component. So as Brittany said, she's in her research phase right now, and then as that progresses, we'll have a better sense of, given her exposure to the different areas of the commission, how she best thinks that she can kind of manifest that work in her art in the city. I will note also that we were just joined by another one of our commissioners, Bishop Silvetta. Thank you for joining us. Fantastic. Lauren, if you could provide an update on some of the legislative work that we've been involved in recently.
So we were kind of intimately involved in the 11 sexual harassment bills that were just passed and are to be signed by the mayor. I'm not sure exactly when. And among them are a law that would extend the statute of limitations to all claims involving gender-based harassment. As sexual harassment is included as a form of gender-based harassment under the New York City Human Rights Law. It would also make all employers accountable to gender-based harassment, regardless of the size of their size. So it decreased, most areas of our law, the definition is 4+ employees, which although we apply that standard very liberally and are able to capture, quite a lot of employers in that kind of jurisdictional threshold, there are small employers that would not be counted in that. And so for the purpose of gender-based harassment claims, they will now be, liable under our law. It also includes, the commission will be creating an e-learning module, like an e-learning training, a sexual harassment training for all private employers. I believe they're going to be required, if they're 15 or more, to provide this training for all of their staff on an annual basis. And so we're going to create that training. I think we have maybe until April of next year. I think it's about a year to roll that out. There's also a training requirement of all city employees. There's a number of bills that relate to transparency and the city agencies being required to report and make public certain data related to sexual harassment claims. And so that's the bulk of that. We're also going to create a Know Your Rights poster that's required under the law, but that's something, as you all know, we do quite frequently in many areas of our law, as well as update our website to provide some kind of general Know Your Rights and information related to gender-based harassment claims. Again, as you all know, something that we do routinely. Much of what is required in those portions are things that we've already done or are already in the works. We also, the cooperative dialogue bill, we were instrumental in drafting, our folks in policy as well as in the Law Enforcement Bureau, which kind of made clear what case law had muddied a little bit, which is that failing to engage in a cooperative dialogue with somebody who is requesting or may be in need of an accommodation under our law. So for the areas of disability, religion, status as a victim of domestic violence, or pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical condition, if you are members of those protected categories, you are entitled to accommodations, either in just employment or across the board, employment, housing, and public accommodations. And prior to the law, there was not a clear requirement that an employer or a provider of public accommodation or housing provider had to engage with you in a discussion if you requested an accommodation. If you failed to do that, there was good argument that you were being discriminated against, because how could they know they could not give you that accommodation if they never spoke to you about it? But it was a really backdoor way for people to kind of make those arguments. So the law that was passed recently would require, there's a clear explicit requirement that all entities that are required under our law to accommodate individuals in those protected classes must engage in a cooperative dialogue. And for employers and housing providers, they must document that process in writing. So they must provide the individual requesting the accommodation with a written determination, so that the individual knows the cooperative dialogue, at least from their perspective, is over. And either I got what I wanted or I didn't. And if I didn't, I can either re-engage in that process, or I can do whatever it depends on what the status is. So at least everyone knows. It's supposed to kind of make things more transparent and people really know what's happening, instead of it kind of just fading away, which I think we were hearing happens a lot. People make requests and then they just kind of never hear back, and they don't know if it was granted or if it's denied. So go into effect until October. But I think those are some of the big ones.
I'll note on the sexual harassment related legislation that Lauren mentioned, a lot of the items that were contained in the bills were actually recommendations that had come up during the December sexual harassment hearing that we had coordinated, and where, just for the record, where we put together a citywide public hearing on sexual harassment and had reached out to and asked workers and advocates from across different industries to testify on their experiences with sexual harassment. So a lot of the things that are contained in those bills were also things that had come out in testimony, which is wonderful. And I'll note that, Commissioner Davis and Albisa, they sat on the hearing panel for that hearing, and we will be releasing that report from the hearing, hopefully by April 25th, which is the day that we've also been coordinating an event with the First Lady of New York's team at Gracie Mansion to talk about Me Too and Time's Up, and kind of the resurgence of this new interest and awareness regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment. So the report will be released by then. We've been working with the Columbia Law School's Gender and Sexuality Clinic. The students from that clinic have been working on helping us draft that report, and it's nearing final. So very exciting for us to, since I think it's been many years since the Commission on Human Rights has had public hearings in this way and then released reports, of course, as a result of those hearings. So this is kind of an exciting milestone for us in that regard. Also, since on the topic of sexual harassment, I'm hoping that folks have seen that I think on April 2nd, we had started our public awareness campaign on sexual harassment. And hopefully in some of the subways and train stations and social media, you've seen some of the ads regarding, calling people to pay attention to what sexual harassment is in the workplace, with the call to action that they address it. They call the Commission on Human Rights so that people know that we are a venue that folks can report those types of claims to. That campaign will be going through I think like early to mid-May. So hopefully if you haven't seen it already in the public, you will. There will also be video PSAs that will be released as part of that, and you'll see that in NYC taxis, as well as all the NYC media related kiosks and such.